Hi! Today we're talking about the clone stamp tool in Adobe Photoshop. We are going to work with this image called Vulture. I guess it's clearly obvious why. This is a large piece. It's about 4 feet by 8 feet. It's printed on cloth. There's the Vulture statue combination holding this cat named Ringer, who's my nephew's cat. The cat staring down at this pigeon, also part of a different statue. There's a bird in this area, bird skeleton, and it's all taking place at the Alhambra in Spain. Pay attention to this area because there are tourists here that we're going to need to get rid of that are standing here, and I know from my sketch I wanted something there. I knew some sort of skeleton, preferably bird, because our cats at least spend most of the time outside hunting lizards and birds. Poor things. Okay, so here's what I started with. This is Alhambra. I'm standing on a wall. I take this picture, and there's tourists because it's summertime in Spain, and this is a beautiful, beautiful palace that you can tour in Granada. So let's concentrate on these people down here because the rest end up getting cropped out anyway, so no sense in worrying about them. We'll try to keep this as short as possible as well. Alright, right here, clone stamp tool. It's hit S on the keyboard, with the clone stamp tool. The default options, I've made sure those are the defaults. We have a mode that we can talk about, or we actually talk about in another tutorial about blending modes. We will change that a little bit today. We'll talk about that line sample checkbox. It's very important, and most importantly, you can check whether on your current layer or you want to sample current and below, but we only have one layer in this document, so we're just going to do current layer. And let's start with the easiest part. Let's scroll right here. She's against a pretty easy background. So first thing we do, we option click. And we click our mouse. That defines our source point. All right, so option click your mouse or option click your pen onto your tablet, and you get a source point. And when I start to draw, notice you can see the cursor where we defined our source point as well as the brush that I'm using. And I'm using a soft brush, so it will blend a little bit better. You can come down here, paint her legs. Now, when I start to get a little bit close to the wall, I perhaps might want to take another sample point, like on the edge of this wall, for doing her feet. Alright, she is gone. So option click to set your source point, and then off you go. Now, let's do an area that's a little bit harder because it's in a tighter, more confined area. We'll do this man and the stroller and his kid. So this is a different texture, so I'm going to option click a new point right here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it right over here, closer to the wall, to show you something. Okay, I'm painting with that. When my sample, you can see, is in the upper right of my brush. You can see those crosshairs still. When I start getting too close to the wall, it starts painting that shadow of the wall and starts to paint the wall there. When I let go of my mouse, and let's say I move it down here, it's still painting the wall. If I move it over here, now it's painting this other dark wall. Notice how my crosshairs are staying equidistant from my sample, my brush sample. Always in the upper right and always equidistant. It doesn't matter where I go in this piece. It's always going to take a sample from the upper right. Here it's going to repeat that part of the wall there. All right, now I'm butchering this whole thing to show you this. Here, I would predict it's going to sample right from this, I don't know what that would be called, that hole. And sure enough, there it is. It's doing the hole again. All right, this is because this tool is set to align sample. So it'll always maintain the same distance between the sample and the brush. Alright, let's zoom out so I can do a few undos here and fix this whole thing. Okay, we're back to. So if I have a small area that I need to sample from, like a tight area, option click, it's best to uncheck this box. And then as I start to paint, if I start getting too close to the wall, I can just let go of the mouse. Now watch, I'll come down here to the shadow area. It actually, let's see if I can get both these guys in the picture. It's gone back to the original sample point. So every time I let go of the mouse, in fact, let's go back over here, all the way up here to this piece again. It's going back to my original sample point. It's not aligned anymore. All right, so if I have a small area, I did undo. If I have a small area that I need to use over a larger area, best to uncheck that box, and it'll keep returning to my original sample. Now, obviously, you need to be careful with that, because if you keep painting with the same piece over and over, it's going to look pretty horrible. It'll be clearly the work of the clone stamp. Everyone will know, oh yeah, he took the same sample and did over and over and over again, and now he's got that stupid whatever rock 100 times. So if you can, take different samples. All right, so this spot is a little bit harder because it falls over 2 different textures, but no biggie. What I can do is 2 things. I can come over here and option click on this edge right here and then come down and paint with that. Although sometimes I find it easier to just actually take my lasso and put a little feather on it. Let's try 5 pixels. That might be too much because it's a small area. And option command drag it. So if I hold down option, I hold down command, you will see, notice my icon. I have a black and a white arrow. I can drag these down. And I can keep option dragging them down to keep extending this piece. That gives me a harder edge right there. Then I can go back to hit S on my keyboard, go back to my clone stamp, and finish this up here. All right. Now notice I'm being very careful when I take my sample. So if I want to fill this in, probably I should continue with this. There's some kind of pattern right here. Take that, fill that in. And again, here's the pattern here. I'll continue that. Or go somewhere further away and that won't be so obvious. Okay, this needs to go too, actually. I should have probably just kept moving this down as I went. So I'm going back to my lasso again. I have a 5 pixel feather on here. I can take this. Now, by the way, I could try this as well. I could take my lasso and I'm going to option click so it gives me my polygonal lasso. Could do something like this and shift delete so that I can pick content aware fill and watch how that works. And that did an okay job. It's always a good starting point, but normally I have to go back and work with it and doctor it a little bit. You can see there's some funny. Now that could easily be a natural stain, who knows. Once you start looking too closely, it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake a lot of times, because sometimes natural things looks oddly fake. Anyway, just to summarize, that actually worked out pretty well. I selected it and then hold down shift and hit delete, and it will bring up this dialog box for fill, and you can pick content aware and do that as well. So all these tools always work together. Alright, now I could try it with this too. Let's see if this works. Sort of shifting topic here, but we've actually looked at most of the stuff with the clone stamp already. So shift delete, content aware, and now this again will require a little bit of fixing. It did it for the most part. Those are pretty easy areas to do, but like right here there's some oddness, so I'm going to try to hook these 2 areas together so this looks like one long big stain or whatever that is. Right here too. And by the way, I could also, if I wanted to fill in this, that looks pretty natural. Where should I, like right here, it's a little soft. Let's say I wanted to put a little piece from over here on there. The last piece of this puzzle I wanted to show you is that when you're using the clone stamp, usually you want the clone source window up because that gives you some more options. If I want to use this piece over here, notice how it's the right edge of this stain. What if I want to make it the left edge of another stain? I can option click on it, hit this guy so it flips my sample around, and actually I could set this to darken. So it's just going to take this dark area on this light area. And notice when I come out here, because I'm going with my, we'll watch my brush and my sample will meet here. A little weirdness. But it doesn't look like it's painting anymore, and it's not because I have the mode set to darken, so it's just going to put the dark areas on right here at the end of this. And again, if I lift up the mouse, you can tell that this piece and this piece are the same, just flipped 180 degrees. But if I start to add and build up with just darken, it'll start to look like a different sample. So I can do stuff like that. Like if I went over here in the shadow, I don't need to worry about messing up that shadow because I have the tool set to darken. So it's only going to affect the light areas. Alright, in fact, if I wanted to darken all these spots in here, I could just say option click in a dark area and go along here, and it would fill in all those little light areas with dark. Let's take a darker sample. Oops, that's a little crazy. I can turn this off. If I click this, it'll reset all these guys. Where was I? Oh, it's right over here. Right, oops, too far again. You got to pay attention to my source point over here. Okay, that's looking all right. I'm going to tweak it a little bit. See, now I can't tell if this was a natural area or if I did that myself. I think it was actually like that to begin with. I don't think anyone was there. Ooh, look, I have a little artifact right here from my camera lens, not being that high quality. Fill that in. Actually, set this back to normal. Okay, so that's fine. All right, those guys are gone. Next, I will work. There's a few people up here on these benches that need to go. They'll actually be easier because they're in shadow and they're pretty subdued, but I got to make sure that they're out of there. I think there's someone even right in there. All right, so to summarize, to summarize is what I mean to say. When I get to the end of these things, I'm always worried about messing up because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to redo it. I'm not gonna redo this. I meant to say summarize. Here we go. Clone stamp. You have to option click for source. Bigger brush is right bracket. Left bracket is smaller brush. And by the way, you can reach the brushes too up here. But notice I have the hardness set to 0 on all those. Or you can control click, get the brushes there too. So whatever way you like best, it's totally up to you. I just picked a different brush. Okay. Next time we're going to take the Alhambra and drop it in behind the statue, the Vulture statue.